Hi, Long Range Hunting. Today I'm going to be doing a video breakdown for you. Welcome back, everybody. Now, today's video breakdown is by The Real Gunsmith, and it's called A Lack of Ethics with Long Range Hunters. Now, I have got a crazy amount of requests to do this video. I broke it down just 2 people before, but never actually done a video on it. It's by a guy, Randy, who goes by The Real Gunsmith, which that alone should tell you everything you need to know. You know, he didn't call it what his company is. It's on his company website. He didn't call it by his name, Randy's, gunsmithing. He didn't do anything like that. He came out of the gate saying, I'm the real gunsmith, which implies that anybody else isn't, basically. He's one of the worst sources of information out there. I'm going to break every part of this down for you and explain it and what's actually true and what's not, just to help you guys out. That way you're not being duped by guys like this. Some things to watch during the video. One is body behavior for tells. Now, what I mean by this is when people lie, they do certain things. I'm talking directly to the camera. The only time I'm looking away is if I'm looking at my phone for the video. But what a lot of people do, especially when you're in person, is eye contact is critical. If you see somebody that's being evasive and they're not looking at you when they're answering questions, they're fidgeting, stuff like that, that can show you they're not being truthful. They don't want to get caught in that lie. And if you watch this video, you're going to see his body behavior. He's always looking away. He's fidgeting around. Now, there's a difference. I'm a very animated person, so I use my hands a lot. But I'm still looking at you. I'm giving you good information. I'm showing you factual evidence to back up that information. But he is going through all this, and he's doing this, and he's always looking somewhere besides the camera. And that right there, just even with the volume off, should tell you when he's lying about something. So let's dive into this and get it started, and we'll go through this entire thing with explanations on everything. Let's dive in.
We're going to talk about long range shooting. Long range shooting specifically to do with the attempt to take beautiful trophy game at long distance. I've talked in the past somewhat to do about this long range aspect. I'll never change my mind about what I know, about what I think, and my lifelong experience.
Just right there, you can see he's looking out other places. He's never looking at the camera when he's saying that. He's always darting his eyes.
That tells me what's really going on here. This whole long range aspect is driven by ego.
Okay, to break that down, that's just a BS excuse. People try to say, oh, well, you just do it for ego. What they don't realize is long range hunting is just simply a skill set. It's just like somebody who rifle hunts short range and bow hunts and then maybe muzzleloader hunts. It's just a different way of doing it. I'm a huge archery hunter. I've got an archery range in my own backyard. I mean, it's something I spend a lot of time doing. I hunt everything from tree stands for whitetails to spot and stock for elk. Really enjoy archery hunting. Most long range hunters archery hunt. It's not that we are doing it for ego or anything. That's like saying somebody that bow hunts is doing it for ego. It's just another method. And for us guys who actually know what we're doing, long range isn't that hard. So a lot of what these guys make up is complete BS. It's just they're trying to make long-range hunters look bad, as if, oh, you're doing it for ego. You're just seeing if you can target practice on animals. They come up with all these hypotheticals because they don't like it, and then the videos and everything, the evidence we have of how easy it actually is to do, debunks everything they say. So they come up with a lot of these, and you're going to hear some of them in here.
We've got inexperienced people out here that are putting together rifles and selling to the consumer. These people have no formal training as gunsmiths, as gun makers, no formal training to do a long-range shooting.
Now, I'm going to stop on that part because he's trying to say that everybody who does it is not a real gunsmith. Again, his kind of thing. They have no formal training in gunsmithing. They have no training in long range, and that's actually a lie. Now, are there company owners who are not gunsmiths? Yes, but they hire qualified gunsmiths to do it. That's just, he's trying to discredit anybody that could potentially prove him wrong. And the fact that they say that they don't have long-range training, now that kind of can be true. The owner of the company might not have long-range training sometimes. However, when they don't, who are they hiring to do that? They're hiring an expert instructor. If you look at different places, they're going to have instructors that will teach those classes. Now, if the owner actually has experience in that and knowledge, then they can also teach it. But generally speaking, unless it's a smaller company, the owner's not teaching. They're going to have instructors to do that. And so his whole theory that everybody else is unqualified just isn't correct in any way, shape, or form. There's no, when they go to hire somebody, they want a competent gunsmith because they've got to make a quality product in order to stay in business. Now you got to remember too, he makes custom rifles. This is a financial thing for him. So he does have a reason to want to discredit the other people, because if they're going with the other person, that's his competition. So it's really trying to put down other people and make them look less qualified and him better.
And with that in mind, these people have taken a rifle. The rifle doesn't have the true capabilities for long-range shooting. Long-range shooting was really conceived around.
Okay, real quick, the whole thing that these rifles are not capable of long range, that's an absolute joke. There are even factory precision rifles that can do it. My longest confirmed kill on a hunt was a mule deer in Idaho at 715 yards with a factory rifle. And that rifle drives tack. So there are some very good shooting rifles out there. In fact, just in the last few years, the amount of quality rifles that are out there has increased, especially with the drive for long range. These guys that are making it, these companies are hiring people, they're hiring experts. Now, the knowledge that has come with this and the advances in technology and studying from those top experts in the industry has really changed the game of what you can get even from a factory rifle, including certain things like increasing the twist rate, doing a smaller twist rate, a faster one, so it's spinning at a higher RPM and can really stabilize a broader range of bullets and works really, really well for stabilizing that projectile. So not even getting into the customs, which are completely capable of it, but there's a lot of factory rifles that you can get that are more than capable of 1,000-yard shots.
Bodines, Pennsylvania. There was a big club of people that shot. They had real bench rush rifles, 30 to 75 to 125 pound rifles.
125 pound rifle. I don't know about you, but this bad boy is 17 pounds, and that's pretty heavy. Now, also, I don't know who the heck is dragging their bench rest rifle out to hunt. I mean, this is something you could compete with PRS and stuff like that, but a true bench gun, especially if you're dealing with extended long range, that's not something pretty much anybody I know is ever going to drag out into the woods. I mean, you're not sitting at a hotel or back our truck up and shooting clear across the mountain. We're in the same woods as everybody else. So what we carry, we have to be able to pack in. And so does this suck being a little bit heavier? Yes, but it's an incredibly accurate rifle, so it's worth it.
On great big huge benches, at that time, you know, everybody used a universal scope. They were shooting deer as far as a mile in open field country.
Now this is funny. He's saying that they're shooting them out to a mile. Now I've shoot to a mile quite a bit. Range of different cartridges from 6 millimeters clear up to 50 cals. And to think these guys are taking game in a mile, which is ironic because he's sitting here talking about the lack of ethics of long range. And he's sitting there trying to brag about guys taking bench rest rifles and shooting at a mile. Now, to break this down for you, in realistic terms, most long-range shots are inside 600 yards, with the vast majority of those being inside 400 yards. It's not everybody's running out grabbing a rifle and trying to shoot 1,000, 1,500 yards a mile. That's not realistic. It's just not. You know, you got to have an animal present itself. You've got to be able to make that shot. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And so it's going to depend on each individual on what they do. But generally speaking, long-range shots are more on the shorter side when you talk about it. In fact, that's really more considered the mid-range, not long-range. It can depend on your skill set, though. And it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But his trying to claim that these guys are out there, you know, with their 125-pound bench rest rifles dropping deer at a mile. I know guys with those type of kills, and they are very highly skilled and can make those shots. But that is not the majority of long-range hunters or, you know, hunters in general. Even target shooters, a lot of them. So what he's saying, I don't find credible whatsoever. And that's not where it got its start either. Long-range hunting's been around for a long time. It just hasn't been as popular. With the advances that we're seeing and more stuff like PRS, Precision Rifle Series competitions, the NRL Hunter competitions that are focused on long range, and just the amount of available training and knowledge out there from the top experts, more and more people are realizing what they can be capable of and learning. It's not as hard. Once you achieve that knowledge and that training, it's not as hard as people think. And so that's where a lot of people are shifting over and finding out it's really not as bad or as hard as people tend to claim.
That's one thing. And they didn't shoot animals that weren't recovered. And
so he's trying to claim that these guys went 100% out to a mile and never lost an animal. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know guys that can do that. But they are the top tier when you're talking about being able to shoot, you know, a mile, 2,000 yards on a cold bore.
Bullets don't work. Most bullets don't work, or any bullet really doesn't work beyond its capabilities, beyond a certain distance.
Okay, now he said something that was partially correct and then also wrong. Now, bullets do have limitations. And he's trying to say that they won't work, and it won't work past a certain distance. That's not actually correct. It's based on the construction, the impact velocity, the impact resistance, depth of penetration. All bullets have what's called a minimum impact velocity, and it's on all of those. And that is the minimum impact velocity of which that bullet is going to expand. And we're not talking about tip just getting a little deformed. We're talking about actual expansion. When you talk about terminal ballistics, that bullet needs to hit, open up, and the more it opens up, the more surface contact, the more displacement you're going to get, which is going to transfer more energy and result in a larger permanent wound cavity. So what he's saying isn't correct. There's lots of bullets that are going to work really well for long range, but what he is saying is bullets do have their limitations. You have your maximum side where if you go over that, you're going to get poor results, especially with something that's going to be more geared towards long range. And every bullet has their minimum impact velocity, and that is what's going to dictate your range. Even if you're capable past that of making those shots, you're still limited on that bullet. So standard hunting bullets are going to have a minimum impact velocity of 2,200 feet per second. Whereas you can get match bullets like the ELD match, A-tips, stuff like that. And some of those can go down to 1,300 feet per second impact velocity. So what he's saying that bullets can't do it, that's an absolute low. There's been huge advances in technology, especially when it comes to terminal ballistic testing, which is what happens inside the animal. So there's a lot of advances. So what he's saying, the only thing he said that's true so far is bullets have limits, and that's true. But his statement that they won't work is false.
And you never use bullets that weren't designed for game. But this...
Now, what he just said there is another just completely wrong thing. Now, there are military and government contracts which dictate what a projectile can be labeled as. So, example of this is a match bullet that snipers use. They need a bullet that has good accuracy, your external ballistics, that's what happens as it flies through the air. And they need also good terminal ballistics because their ultimate goal is to kill that individual. Now, because of the Hague Convention, a bunch of dumbass politicians decided that anything labeled hunting was inhumane. Now, you can light somebody on fire with a flamethrower. You can drop a bomb on them. You know, you can shoot them full of holes with a machine gun with full metal jackets. You can stab them. You can do all this stuff. But God forbid using a bullet that has hunting in it is somehow inhumane. It's pretty ridiculous. But a lot of people don't realize, and I have a good video on that. It's called ELD Match, and it shows that it's designed to expand and actually works really well. You guys can watch that. But even Hornady, they got to be careful how they say it. But if you actually look on Hornady's website, on their law enforcement website, it actually has their ballistic gel testing there. And so you're going to see the depth of penetration, the wound cavity, weight retention, all that fun jazz. It also states specifically in there that it is designed to expand and has excellent terminal ballistics. And so it's kind of, they have to work through loopholes as far as what they can market it because of the European scene and certain contracts. A great example of this is the self-defense ammo, critical defense and critical duty. One is for civilians and one for law enforcement. It's the same thing. The only difference is what box it gets sent in. So there's a lot of certain little things like that. But just because it's labeled as target or match, does that mean that it's not going to work well on game? Absolutely not. Even Berger, here's the thing on the OTM, the open tip match, that states they're the same bullet. So it's really just down to marketing and labeling. What are they going to label it as? But, you know, through our testing and everything and hunting, match bullets, the A-tips, ELD match, AMAX, Sierra tipped match kings, and the Bergers, except for the VLD line, are the top performers, including beating out hunting bullets. You have extreme accuracy and incredible terminal performance. And we'll dive into that in a second on showing you guys the actual wound cavities at different distances, etc.
Having started out at that point many, many years ago in Bodines, Pennsylvania area, and brought here mostly to the west, we've got, as I said, people that are putting together rifles, rifle packages, and actually putting on long-range shooting seminars. Those people have never been trained themselves, but they're...
Okay, to dive back into this, because he's, again, going to that never been trained. A second ago, he said that long-range hunters don't have any training. But what he's talking about, these seminars, are actually classes. If you go to a place like Best of the West and you buy a rifle, what they can offer you is actually a class. They will teach you how to use that rifle with instructors. So you're going, you know, there's different people. If you look at Gunworks, they had Philip Vallejo there, who's a former Marine sniper. He runs the modern sniper stuff right now and is a very highly knowledgeable and talented shooter and instructor. And so he worked for Gunworks as theirs. And it's the same thing with Gunworks. If you buy one of the rifles, they have classes to teach you long range and how to use it, how to utilize your system, your scope, everything. And so what he's saying here isn't actually correct in any way, shape, or form. They do, and he contradicts himself too. First, it's they don't have any training. Next, they do give training. You know, it's all over with this guy.
They're putting a rifle together. An untrained person claiming that he's a professional, that he's an expert, putting a rifle together. Nonsense. I've been building rifles professionally since 1969. I was building rifles 5 or 6 years before that for myself. I know what it takes to build an accurate rifle.
Okay, here's the thing. This is something that comes up a lot. People don't realize just because you've done something for a long time does not make you an expert. It doesn't even make you good. That's perfect, or practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you do a job, let's say you're a plumber and you're a crappy plumber and you do a crappy job for 50 years, does that make you an expert plumber or good at it? No. It means you did a crappy job for 50 years. So that doesn't actually qualify, but a lot of these guys try to utilize that they're old or they've done something for a long period of time as validation, especially when they're going against guys who actually know what they're talking about. Philip Vallejo, for instance, or Justin Watts or Robert Brantley or any of those top guys, they have been doing this combined less than he has, yet those guys will run circles around him, not only shooting, instructing, knowledge of ballistics and rifles, etc. So quality is more important than quantity. So even though somebody's done something for a long time, that doesn't automatically translate into good experience.
You got to use the very best components to build the rifle, the very best rifle barrels. Actions always, irregardless, have to be bedded to make to the stock. You're not going to get...
Okay, that's actually false, that last part. You do not have to bed. Now, do I have rifles that are bedded like this? That's my 300 Win Mag. It is a custom rifle that's been bedded, which means that it's got a glass bedding where it fills in the gaps in between the action and the stock so that there's no movement in there. However, modern rifle stocks and chassis, some are built to specific specs and built so you don't have to bed it. Now, even a rifle that isn't bedded, like my Remington 705R, the one I made the 715-yard shot with, I've never bedded that action, and that thing will hold sub-MOA at 800 yards. So it's not necessary. If you're having accuracy issues, then that is one thing to look at. And generally speaking, with a custom rifle, they're going to bed it just to make it as consistent as possible. So there are certain rifles where, yes, bedding is something that I would recommend, especially if you're having issues. However, it does not require it with certain ones. This foundation stock drops straight in, and this rifle is more accurate than my customs, the multiple customs I have, which have bedded actions.
A precision accurate rifle that's not properly put together. I put a rifle together that will shoot as well, or probably way, way far better.
Now I want to talk about this because this is exactly what I mentioned before. He is trying to put himself above everybody else. He has a company. He calls himself the real gunsmith, but he just stated that he can build a better rifle than all the experts out there, all those guys that work for those major companies that are the leading innovators, all of them that have built a reputation as the top tier guys for gunsmithing, precision rifles, etc. None of them compare to him.
Then you can buy a rifle from anybody else, because every rifle that I built is an individual rifle for an individual situation. Loads worked up for it.
Okay, loads worked up for it. Let's talk about that real quick. That's very simple. It's just load development. Anytime you get a new precision rifle, there are companies, though, that will do this for you. There's guys that specifically just do this. I'm not talking about even a gunsmith. I'm talking about guys that specialize in reloading, and they have businesses where you bring your rifle to them and they will go through the entire process for you, find out your load, and then tell you all that information, and then you can load it yourself after that. So you have ones that the manufacturer offers that service. You have some that are just individuals, or you can do it yourselves. I personally am never going to pay somebody to do that because it's really not that difficult. Is it time consuming? Yes, but it's really not difficult to do load development. So what he's saying is a very small, and it's really not difficult. I mean, anybody can do it.
I have an entire lifetime of rifle building experience and expert hand loading experience.
Expert hand loading experience. Okay, well, anybody can reload. My 10-year-old reloads, and he knows how to reload a precision round. He can trim, he can do powder weight, he can do all that fun jazz measurements, and he's 10. I started reloading realistically about 8 for my dad, and so it's one of those things. It's not hard, it's time consuming and very meticulous, but again, we're not talking about rocket science here. All that stuff that goes into the powder's burn rate and all that has been done by those really smart people. All you're doing is finding out what combination your gun likes and making sure that everything's uniform and consistent.
I have loaded for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different cartridges. Shot millions upon millions of rounds.
Okay, I want to talk about the million and millions of rounds. This is another thing. There's a couple things that are red flags for guys trying to validate themselves. One is the amount of time they've done something, like we've talked about, that doesn't actually translate into good experience. The other one is the round count. I know guys from everything from just a regular shooter into special operations, and they have shot ridiculous amounts of ammunition. The legit guys, I've never heard them ever utilize that as a validation. They don't walk around and say, I've shot 2 million rounds. That's just not something they do. That's something I see a lot of people do when they're trying to validate that they are, legitimate. Oh, well, this guy's done it for 50 years. He shot millions of rounds. He must know what he's talking about, right? There's what we call making expensive noise. Just because you can do this does not mean that it's going to translate into good. If you're jerking that trigger, if you don't have good fundamentals of marksmanship, all you're doing is making expensive noise. Guys will be hitting everything but the target, and they can fire, 500 rounds, 1,000 rounds in a weekend. Does that translate into they're good at that? No.
Every rifle has to run on a different diet. Just because we're building whatever
Now he talks about it with a different diet. That means that each gun has a certain load it's going to prefer. It can vary between guns. You want to find the sweet load for you, what that gun likes. Now, does that mean that it won't shoot other loads accurately? No. It's really talking about very small amounts. I have factory ammunition I could run through this that will shoot very, very tight groups. But my hand loads that I've tuned for this shoot even better. Or I even can do hand loads that just, this gun, it's not its favorite, but when we're talking about favorites, we're talking about very, very small increments. We're talking, tenths of an inch here. We're not talking about, huge amounts. We're talking about very, very small differences.
that we're building at the time. Let's say that we're going to build a 28 nozzler. One of them was going to shoot this bullet, one of them's going to shoot that bullet, one of them's going to shoot a different powder, one of them's going to shoot a different primer. To buy a rifle from somebody.
Now, what he said right there about primers and stuff. Yes, you can use different powders. You're going to want to use a certain burn rate, etc. But you can have multiple guns that are in the same powder. I've had 3-4 308s at a time, and I will run the same exact powder, primer, brass, and even bullets. The difference is what powder charge I'm going to use. One might be 44 grains, one might be 44.4. And so I can run those same projectiles, I can run those same primers, Heck, I'll run primers, the same ones across the board. You know, I run the same primers in my 6 Creed here that I run in my 308s. And so it's just one of those things. You have 2 different guns, 2 different cartridges, and literally you have the exact same components basically. The only difference is going to be the powder charge and the bullet diameter if you're changing calibers and cartridges. But it's not like you have to have them polar opposites or use a different primer. Really, the only time you're going to use a different primer is if the primers for some reason aren't working that well, or if you're going from a small to a large to a magnum. If you need for that particular brass, like a 223 takes a small rifle primer, a 308 takes a large.
That's putting themselves forth as an expert in a long range field that has never had any training, that has never had any lifelong experience.
Okay, now I'm just going to stop him there because this is just another load of bull. He's trying to say that everybody but him has 0 experience. A lot of these guys that are doing this stuff, that are bringing this in, are coming from very, very good backgrounds. There's very few guys that are coming into the custom world or precision shooting world that don't have any form of training or experience. Do you get them occasionally? Yes, some do slip through. But generally speaking, those guys, they don't last long if they're not going to be an expert in that field or do it well. Generally, they'll get fired or whatever the case might be. But a lot of guys are coming out of theater, former snipers, top competition shooters, and these guys either work for those companies or they will consult. I know guys that have consulted on everything from a complete scope design to reticles to, they're always looking at those experts, especially in the competition field and in snipers. They're looking for that feedback, and so these guys will consult on that and help them with designs, better in equipment. It's that real world data that they need, and so he's trying to basically say that none of them have that.
To be able to basically hang their hat on anything. You just don't step out of a cold shower. You just don't step out of a cold shower, having never picked up a rifle and never done anything, one thing, and the next day now you're a long-range rifle building expert.
I don't know of a single person in all of my connections throughout the industry that fits that criteria. I just don't. I don't know of anybody who just came off the street, has never touched a rifle, has never shot a rifle, done any of that just walked up and said, I'm going to build a custom rifle now. I've never seen that.
You're a long-range rifle shooter. It doesn't work that way. It takes many years of experience. Our very best military snipers that have spent their time all over the world sniping men, guys that have retired, Marines that I've talked to, and so forth. Guys with 35, 45 years experience doing this sort of thing. They laugh. They laugh. Those guys aren't even put out into the field to do these things until they've spent about 3 years in training.
All right, let's break down this level of stupidity. And I want to say that because it is. One, I don't believe he's ever talked to a sniper and any sniper has laughed about it or said that. That's just ridiculous. There's so much wrong with what he just said. For one, the guy, I looked up his bio, he has never served in the military. He has 0 room to be talking about the military. But his information, he's trying to portray that he knows these guys, which if he has talked to somebody, I'm guessing it's a stolen valor case. They're a fake, because I know a lot of snipers, from the guys that trained me to, friends, etc. I know guys that are former active duty, etc. Talk to them all the time. What he's saying, that they laugh that people are long range hunting and think that they can't do it, that's impossible. Most of those guys that are coming back from theater, those former, even active duty guys, are training people in long range. They're opening schools, they're doing consulting. Some of those top guys, they are trying to, and a lot of them long range hunt. And so they are spreading that knowledge So the fact that he's saying these guys say, oh, you can't do that, no. Now also, what he said about they have to have years of training, that is a low. That just shows he does not know. Now the military, it's going to depend on your unit and what branch you're in, etc. If you take the Army, it's not you don't have an entire unit of snipers. What you have is guys that will go to sniper training and then they go back to their unit. And so you can have guys from the Bradley assault vehicle units, you can have infantry, and what these guys do is they go off to sniper training. They either fail or pass, lots fail, but if they pass and they come back as a sniper back with that unit, and then they're going to operate in that unit and utilize them as a sniper as needed. But they are not, requiring all this extra training. If they have graduated sniper school, then they have all the knowledge and skills. They've had to apply it in every different field. And some people don't realize precision shooting is a very, very small part of what a sniper does. I mean, less than 10%. Most of it's reconnaissance, intel gathering, etc. Doing overwatches while they do search. Very little is actual precision delivery of rounds on target. That's what they're famous for. That's the sexy part. Sitting in a swamp, covered in piss and crap. I mean, you can't move, you smell, you haven't showered in days. That's not exactly sexy. So they focus on, especially Hollywood, the shots, but that's not what they mainly do. That is only a small part of it. Now, are they good at it? Yes, but that's a very small part. But by the time, because you get guys that will actually fail sniper school, you can have the best shot in the world, but if they can't stalk and be undetected, they're not going to pass because they're going to get killed. So just because you can shoot does not translate you're going to make a sniper. And so if you have passed your sniper training, you don't go back to your prospective unit and then be like, oh, well, you can't be a sniper for 3 years. No. Now, are they going to continue to hone their skills as they build experience? Yes. However, when they leave that school, they are qualified and able to do that job. They are able to go forward and operate as a sniper. And that is going to depend directly on the unit itself. Now, they can come in and out from different deployments. Their unit could be returning from deployment. Guys will go straight from theater to sniper training. Sometimes they'll go in between, and there's guys that have gone to sniper training, graduated, and a month later they're on a deployment. The deployment's going to depend on that military unit itself. You have deployments where you have the entire unit is going to deploy as a whole. And then when you get into more specialty stuff, you can get what's called DETs or detachments, where the entire unit isn't deploying. A section of that unit is deploying for a specific mission, and those tend to have guys around the world all the time. So it depends on your specific unit. If you get into special teams and stuff like that, if you get into special operations, you're going to have a whole unit, but you're going to deploy platoons of guys and stuff like that. So what he's describing is completely false. Let's even just look at the timetable. Now, it's going to vary depending on which school you're going to, but if you look at like Army sniper school, it's 7 weeks. If you look at the Marine Corps one, they actually have a new recon program that they're going with that's adding a lot more of the advanced stuff in, but you're looking between 7 and 9 weeks between them. So you're looking roughly 2 months of training for sniper school. And after that, they are a qualified and able sniper, and they can deploy as a sniper and work. Now, do they go to follow-on training, competition, stuff like that to keep their skills top and learn new tactics and stuff? Yes. Something people don't realize either, snipers, precision shooting is not classified. Missions are classified. Certain tactics are classified. But the precision shooting that you see them doing, anybody can learn. Those guys are coming back from theater and teaching people. You can go to multiple schools. What a PRS shooter does as far as the precision shooting is the same thing a sniper is doing, which is only that small part of the job. So you can learn the exact same thing of, wind deflection, all that, how to adjust for it using ballistic calculators, the environmental conditions, aerodynamic jump. You can learn all of that stuff. So people think it's this huge, super secret. They have magic. I've even heard that one. Or these guys can do, mind-boggling things. Yeah, they can under extreme conditions. But that doesn't mean that you can't learn to do that shooting too. And with the advances in technology, it's amazing what you can really do. I've been shooting long range for a long time. And when I first started, it was not what it is today. It was prior to PRS and all that. And so there wasn't the popularity, but I came back from my second deployment and I wanted to get some more training. I wanted to learn the precision side. So I did a lot of research, contacted people, and ended up finding Badlands Tactical Training Facility, just to tell you a little bit about myself. I looked at them. They do classes for law enforcement, military, contractors, civilians, everything from the gamut of like defensive pistols, sniper, and even military and law enforcement classes only like SWAT. And so they do a whole spectrum of different things. It's a nationally accredited school. They do all the CLEAT certifications. So CLEAT is Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training. And so it's a legitimate school. I went down there and ended up training. I went through their sniper, advanced sniper classes. I also went through the military and law enforcement only. I went through basic SWAT. I've been in defensive pistol training. So I've trained a bunch down there, but I did a lot of that in between my second and third deployment. So I went and found somebody that had that knowledge and learned from them. And I mean, the head instructor there at the time, he's retired now, and one of my mentors is Steve Suttles, who holds 5th place for the most confirmed kills in Marine Corps history as a sniper. He was in Vietnam. He until Jim beat it in 2005, I believe it was. Steve held the record for the longest confirmed kill with a 308 at 1,250 yards from Hill 55 in Vietnam. He was part of the 5th Marine Grim Reapers with Chuck Malini, which holds 1st place for the most confirmed kills in Marine Corps history. So very, very accomplished guy. Him and the owner, Bobby, who are very accomplished guys, they founded the sniper school for the National Guard in Little Rock, Arkansas, both career military, law enforcement. So some very knowledgeable guys, including some of the best in the world, were my mentors. So I've had the experience of actually learning from guys like that. I've also studied with Justin Watts, who has JTAC and foul bore precision. He's a former Army sniper. He's one of the top PRS shooters in the world. Really, really good guy, really knowledgeable. He runs a training facility, range, everything. And so I've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of really, really accomplished guys. And you get a lot of insight too, talking to these legitimate guys, not what this guy's trying to say, but the legitimate guys, and understanding how everything operates, you know, shooting, etc. Even some fieldcraft Badlands, you know, you get into the advanced stuff and it's more into the fieldcraft land navigation, other stuff. So it's really not as difficult as people think. I mean, it's just not.
You just don't all of a sudden just step into the field and become an expert. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you don't just step in the field and become an expert. You do have to learn, but these guys aren't doing that. A lot of them are already experts, and then they're coming into the field. And even some that do come into the field, like they get hired at a company at the bottom, can work their way up. They're going to learn as they go. So it's not going to be an instant you're promoted to this. But there are guys that come in pretty blind to it, and then they'll go to schools, they'll train, they'll do all that, and then they learn.
You can't use the same load, the same exact load in the same rifle and expect the same level of accuracy. The level of accuracy at 100 yards is one thing. What does that rifle shoot at 500 yards? What does it shoot at 1,000 yards? Do you have the capabilities to understand that? Have you checked your...
Okay, the only thing that he said here is you do want to verify your data at long range. As a long range hunter, we're not just going to focus on that 100-yard group. Now, we are going to start with that. We're going to shoot at 100 yards. We're going to do our load development, and then we'll take that load and verify it at long range. But his whole trying to spin it as some huge thing that nobody can understand is ridiculous. There's a lot of good information out there. You look at Brian Litz, who is the top ballistic expert in the world. He does stuff with Burger Bullets. He's the founder and owner of Applied Ballistics, which is the leading ballistic software out there. He's got books that you can read. He's also started a podcast that he literally goes through each section of the book and updates stuff and informs you so that he can put out an incredible amount of knowledge. He's also been very active on social media lately. He's been debunking a bunch of stuff, putting a lot of good information out there. So it's not hard to get the knowledge if you know where to look and you take the time.
Check the rifle. You're claiming that you've got a long-range rifle that you're selling to somebody, claiming that you're a long-range expert. The rifle only shoots an 1.5 inch group at 100 yards. What's it going to shoot at 1,000? It can't possibly shoot a reasonable group for taking game at long range.
See, I don't know if he's basing this off of his rifles and they're more than a minute of angle of accuracy. Now, minute of angle is a small unit of measurement. It's a 60th of a degree. And it's used for not only on an optic, as far as your adjustments up, you can use mils or MOA, but it's used to also measure accuracy. So shooter's MOA is 1 inch per 100 yards. If you want true MOA, it's 1.047 inches. And what that is he's saying that that rifle is shooting 1.5 minute or 1.5 inch groups at 100 yards. So if you have a 1 MOA rifle at 100 yards, theoretically you should have one that shoots 10 inches or 1 MOA at 1,000 yards. Quite honestly, I don't know of anybody that he's trying to describe that's putting out a custom precision rifle that shoots that way. If I got a rifle that shoots 1.5 inches, hell, even if I get a rifle that shoots 1 inch, I'm sending that thing back. I have factory rifles that shoot better than that. So it's, I mean, 1 MOA is for a hunting style rifle good accuracy. Even for a long gun, it can be good accuracy. That's the general scope of military snipers and field conditions is 1 MOA. That's what they want to achieve or better. But the military gets issued certain stuff. That's another misconception. People think because the military is the military, they get all this super high-tech stuff. That's not actually true. My equipment here is far superior to what most snipers will ever touch. Now, if you get into special operations, that can be a little bit different with their budgets and stuff. But generally speaking, what we're running is far superior to what most snipers are using.
You shouldn't be attempting in the first place. This is all wrong. It's given the shooting fraternity a terrible bad name. And the other aspect is,
no, long-range shooting and long-range hunting is not giving anybody a bad name. People like this that are trying to make up stuff and make other hunters look bad because they don't like it, that is what gives us a bad name. I've never found anybody that found a long-range shooter to be, or a long-range hunter to be somebody who gave somebody a bad name. But when somebody's doing this kind of stuff and they're lying about it, and they're trying to say that we're wounding animals and we're going out there with no training, etc., that, especially when somebody does know better than what they're saying, just puts a bad taste in their mouth. So, you know, I've never understood this. Honestly, it doesn't matter what platform you want to hunt with, what distance. As long as you're capable, that's all it is. Ethics is very simple. It's not something you don't like. Ethics is staying within your abilities. It's about taking a shot, no matter what weapon system, inside your capabilities with the result of a quick, clean kill. It doesn't matter if you do it with a bow or it doesn't matter if you do it with a long gun at long range. You actually have a higher probability and more animals are wounded by archery hunters than anything else, than rifles, you know, etc. And long range, we're very picky about our shots. We're not just out there flinging lead at everything. We have top-end equipment, we have the training, we have the knowledge, and we are very, very picky about what shots we take because of that. Now, I'm going to stop right here just because the length of having to explain everything that this guy's talking about. We're going to do this in 2 parts. So stay tuned. Wait for the second part. Hope you enjoyed this video. Any questions, drop them in the comments below. And until next time, everybody be safe out there. Happy hunting.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notification bell so you won't miss out on any future video. And happy hunting!